Assalamu alaikum to everyone. The topic of my presentation is EAU guideline on unit tract infection. I am Hamza Abdul Malik, MSurology SAU team. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So start from the what is the aim of EAU guideline and what is the objective. It provides evidence-based information and recommendation, prevention and treatment of unit tract infection and male accessory gland infection. Guidelines also address the important public health aspect of infection control and antimicrobial stewardship. So, what is the antimicrobial stewardship? The program that encourages judicious and injudicious use of antibiotic. Antibiotics are relatively so effective, non-toxic, and inexpensive, so easy to use that they are prone to be abused. When the diagnosis is uncertain, antibiotics are often prescribed. The stewardship to fine-tune antibiotic treatment is in regard to efficacy, toxicity, resistant indication, clostridium difficile indication, cause, and discontinuation. This is a chart which is showing the crisis of worldwide. In the Europe, antibiotic resistance causes 25,000 deaths per year and extra 2.5 days in hospital. In India, over 58,000 babies died in 1 year as a result of infection with resistant bacteria, usually passed on from their mouth. In Thailand, bacteria resistance causes 38,000 plus deaths per year and 3.2 months of hospital days. In United States, antibiotic resistance causes 23,000 deaths per year and more than 2 months illness. Stay in hospital. This is the graph which is taken by some article which is published in Pakistan, showing the antibiotic resistance in Pakistan. There is a penicillin group, and the first cephalosporin region is 100% resistant in Pakistan. So benefit to patient of antibiotic use are clear. Overuse and misuse have contributed to the growing problem of resistance amongst uropathogen bacteria. In hospital, 20 to 50% of prescribed antibiotics are whether unnecessary and inappropriate. Antimicrobial stewardship aims to optimize clinical outcome and ensure cost-effective therapy. Also, healthcare associated infection include Clostridium difficile, toxicity, selection of virulent organisms, and emerging resistance of bacterial strains. The important components of antimicrobial stewardship program: regular training of staff in best use of antimicrobial agent, adherence to local, national, and international guidelines, regular ward visit and consultation with infection disease physician and clinical microbiologist, audit of adherence and treatment outcomes, regular monitoring and feedback to prescribe of their performance and local pathogen resistant profiles. So let's come to the EAU classification of UTI. EAU classified as a UTI in a complicated and uncomplicated UTI. In uncomplicated UTI is cystitis, pyelonephritis, recurrent UTI, and catheter associated, which is located in both complicated and uncomplicated UTI in man and urosepsis. Classification: uncomplicated UTI, the acute, sporadic, and recurrent lower uncomplicated cystitis, and upper uncomplicated pyelonephritis, UTI limited to non-pregnant women to no non-relevant and anatomical and functional abnormalities within the unit tract or comorbidities. Complicated UTIs are UTIs which are not defined as uncomplicated, meaning in a direct sense UTI is a patient with an increased chance of complicated course, all men, pregnant women, patient with anatomical or functional abnormalities of the unit tract, unicatheter renal disease, and others concomitant immunocompromising disease, for example, diabetes. Recurrent UTIs of uncomplicated or complicated with a frequency of at least 3 UTIs per year or 2 UTIs in the last 6 months. Catheter-associated UTIs. Catheter-associated UTI unit tract infection referred to UTIs occurred in a person whose unit tract is currently catheterized or has had a catheter in place within the past 48 hours. Urosepsis is defined as a life-threatening organ dysfunction caused by a dysregulated host response to infection originating from the unit tract or male genital organ. So, is the unit tract is symptomatic or asymptomatic? So, what is the asymptomatic bacteriuria? Asymptomatic bacteriuria is the presence of a bacteria in the properly collected urine of a patient that has no sign or symptom of a unit tract infection. Epidemiology of asymptomatic bacteriuria occurred in an estimated 1.5% of healthy pre-menopausal females and 4 to 19% in healthy adult females and men, 0.7 to 27% in patients with diabetes, 2 to 10% in pregnant women, 23 to 89% in patients with spinal cord disease. Risk factors are pregnant women, diabetic mellitus, patient with renal transplant, recurrent UTIs, neurosensitive bladder, prolonged hospitalization, postmenopausal women. The diagnostic evaluation of asymptomatic bacteriuria in an individual without unit tract symptoms is defined by a midstream sample of urine show bacteria growth is more than 10 power 5 clonic formation units per ml in 2 consecutive sample in women and one signal sample in man. In a single sample, bacteria growth may be as low as 10 power 2 clonic formation unit per ml to be considered presenting 2 bacteriuria in both men and women. Cystoscopy and matching of the unit tract is not mandatory. If persistent growth of urease producing bacteria like Proteus is detected, stone formation in the urinary tract must be excluded. In men, a digital rectal examination has to be performed to investigate the possibility of prostate disease. So, what we decided, treated or not treated the asymptomatic bacteriuria. If the patient without identified risk factor, the symptomatic bacteria does not cause renal disease or damage. Only one prospective or non-randomized studies investigated the effect of treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria in adult, non-diabetic, non-pregnant women. Treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria has been proven unnecessary in patients without risk factor. Screening and treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria is not recommended in patients without risk factor. Is treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria beneficial in pregnant women? The 12 randomized control trials comparing antibiotic treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria with placebo control or no treatment. 11 of them, the randomized control trials reported on the rate of symptomatic UTIs. Antibiotic treatment significantly reduces the number of symptomatic UTIs compared to placebo or no treatment. Antibiotic treatment effective in the resolution of the bacteria compared to placebo. Antibiotic treatment associated with low rate of preterm delivery compared to placebo or no treatment. Based on the beneficial maternal or fetal effect of antibiotic treatment, pregnant women should be screened and treated for asymptomatic bacteriuria. The patient with catheter in unit tract, how we treat the asymptomatic bacteriuria. Patient with inhaling of suprapubic catheter and nephrostomy tube become carriers of asymptomatic bacteriuria with antibiotic treatment showing no benefit. Routine treatment of catheter-associated bacteriuria is not recommended. Which treatment duration should be applied to treat asymptomatic bacteriuria in pregnancy? A single dose at short course to 7 days, long course 8 to 14 days, and continuous until delivery. If we compare the single dose versus short course treatment, the randomized control trial data analysis show the single dose treatment associated with a significantly less side effect compared to the short dose, but the significantly more babies with low birth weight in the single dose duration compared to short course treatment. This is the chart which is showing in summarizing the asymptomatic bacteriuria. Definition of more forming the unit of a single pathogen on two uniculture in patient without symptoms. A positive urine analysis predict positive urine culture, but does not itself indicate need for treatment of UTIs in the clinical diagnosis. In pregnant women, prevalence is 10%, treat for 3 to 7 days, amoxicillin and cephalexin, nitrofurantoin. Second trimester avoid within 30 days of delivery, and try methoprim first and second semester, trimester. Nursing home residents 40 to 50% not recommended unless undergoing invasive urology procedure. For the catheter, the 100% not indicated result in the development of resistant microorganism, whereas removal of the catheter lead to the spontaneous elimination of the bacteria in many patients. Patient with identified risk factor like diabetes mellitus. So, what is the recommendation for asymptomatic bacteriuria? Recommendation are the diabetes mellitus, even when well regulated, is reported to correlate to a higher frequency of asymptomatic bacteriuria. Randomized control trial demonstrated that eradicating asymptomatic bacteria did not reduce the risk of symptomatic UTIs and infection complicated in patients with diabetic mellitus. Untreated asymptomatic bacteriuria did not correlate to diabetic nephropathy. Screening and treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria in well-controlled diabetic mellitus is not recommended. Poorly regulated diabetes is a risk factor for symptomatic UTI and infection complication. Asymptomatic bacteria in post-menopausal women. The recommendations are the elder women have an increased incidence of asymptomatic bacteriuria. Randomized controlled trials compared antibiotic treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria with placebo control or no treatment in a post-menopausal female population with different antibiotic dose. No significant benefit of antibiotic treatment asymptomatic bacteriuria in post-menopausal women does not require treatment and should be managed as for premenopausal women. Asymptomatic bacteriuria in patient with renal transplant. The recommendation are the randomized control trials and retrospective studies compared the effect of antibiotic treatment to no treatment in renal transplantation. Meta-analysis of the randomized control trials and retrospective did not find antibiotic treatment beneficial. No significant difference in the rate of asymptomatic bacteriuria clearance, graft loss, or change in renal function during long-term follow-up up to 24 months. Treatment of asymptomatic bacteria is not recommended in renal transplant patient. Patient with dysfunctional and reconstruction lower urinary tract. And the recommendations are the patient with lower urinary tract dysfunction, neurogenic bladder, patients candidate for multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injuries, patient with incomplete bladder empty, patient with new bladder and ileocystoplasty, patient using clean intermittent catheterization, and patient with ileal conduit, orthopedic bladders replacement and content reserve, the frequency become colonized. Study has shown no benefit in asymptomatic bacteriuria treatment in these patient group. screen and treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria in this patient group is not recommended. If this patient group develop recurrent symptomatic UTI, the patient potential protective effect of and spontaneously developed asymptomatic bacteriuria against lower UTI must be considered before any treatment. So this is the summary of evidence and recommendation for the management of asymptomatic bacteriuria. The treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria not beneficial in following condition: women without risk factor, patient with well-regulated diabetes mellitus, postmenopausal woman, patient with dysfunctional and or reconstruction lower unit tract, patient with renal transplant, patient prior to arthroplasty surgeries. The treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria is harmful in patient with recurrent urinary tract infection. Treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria is beneficial prior to urological procedure, reaching to the mucosa. Treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria in pregnant women was found to be beneficial by meta-analysis of the available evidence. However, the most studies are recently studies reported low rates of pyelonephritis in low-risk women. This is a recommendation: do not screen or treat asymptomatic bacteriuria in following condition: women without risk factor, patient with well-regulated diabetes, post menopausal woman, patient with dysfunction and reconstruction lower unit tract, patient with renal transplant, patient prior to the arthroplasty surgeries, patient with the recurrent urinary tract infection. Screen for the treat asymptomatic bacteriuria prior to the urological procedure, reaching the mucosa, and screen for the treat asymptomatic bacteriuria in pregnant women with the standard short course treatment. EAU guideline on uncomplicated cystitis. Start from the introduction. Is a defined acute sporadic or recurrent cystitis limited to non-pregnant women with no non-relevant anatomical and functional abnormalities within the urinary tract or comorbidities. The epidemiology of uncomplicated cystitis: almost half of all women will experience at least one episode of cystitis during their lifetime. 1 in 3 women will have had at least one episode of cystitis by the age of 24 years. The risk factor including sexual intercourse, use of spermicides, a new sexual partner, a mother with a history of UTI and a history of UTI during the childhood. The most common causative agent of uncomplicated UTIs is E. coli, followed by the Staphylococcus spirocheticus. Diagnostic evolution: the clinical diagnosis. The diagnosis of the uncomplicated cystitis can be made with a high probability based on the focus history of lower unit tract symptoms, dysuria, frequency and urgency, and the base of vaginal discharge or irritation. In elder women, genitourinary symptoms are not necessarily related to cystitis. So this is a differential diagnosis of cystitis. The uncomplicated cystitis should be differentiated from asymptomatic bacteriuria, which is considered not to be infected but rather colonization, which should not be treated and therefore not screened for except if it is considered a risk factor in a clearly defined situation. And furthermore, there is a condition which is match with the sign and symptoms of cystitis. The nephrolithiasis and the pelvic inflammatory disease, that's urethritis and retinitis. The laboratory diagnosis: in patient presenting with the typical symptoms of an uncomplicated cystitis, urine analysis, urine culture stick test lead only to a minimal increase diagnosis accuracy. If the diagnosis is unclear, dipstick analysis can increase the uncomplicated cystitis diagnosis. Taking urine culture is recommended in patients with atypical symptoms and those who fail to respond to antimicrobial therapy. The diagnosis of acute uncomplicated cystitis: furthermore, the ultrasonic and the CT scan and urine culture. Not recommended in case of cystitis, but done if acute pyelonephritis is suspected or complicated UTIs. So the summary of evidence for the diagnosis, evaluation of uncomplicated cystitis. An accurate diagnosis of uncomplicated cystitis can be based on focused history of lower limb tract symptoms and the absence of vaginal discharge or irritation. The symptoms is dysuria, urgency, and pregnancy. The recommendations are the diagnose uncomplicated cystitis in women who have no other risk factor or complicated urinary tract based on a focused history of lower urinary tract symptoms, dysuria, frequency and urgency, the absence of vaginal discharge or irritation. Use urine dipstick test for diagnosis of acute uncomplicated cystitis. Urinary culture should be done in the following situation: suspected acute pyelonephritis, symptoms that not resolve or recur within for a week after the completion of treatment. Women who present with atypical symptoms and pregnant women. Disease management, antimicrobial therapy is recommended because clinical success is significantly more likely in women treated with antimicrobial compared with placebo. Choice of antimicrobial therapy should be guided by spectrum and susceptibility pattern of etiology, pathogen, efficacy for the particular indication in the clinical studies, adverse reaction, adverse etiology effect, cost, and viability. According to the EAU guideline, the fosfomycin 3 mg single dose and the selenium 400 mg 3 times in a day for 3 to 5 days, and nitrofurantoin twice 100 mg twice daily for 5 days are considered as drug of first choice. Alternative antimicrobial include trimethoprim alone or combined with the sulfonamide, cotrimazole 160 or 800 mg twice daily for 3 days, or trimethoprim 200 mg twice daily for 5 days should only be considered as a drug of first choice in area with non-resistant rate for E. coli is less than 20%. Fluoroquinolones are not considered first choice because of adverse effect, including negative ecological effect and selection of resistance. Aminopenicillin are no longer suitable for empirical therapy because of worldwide high E. coli resistance. Aminopenicillin in combination with beta-lactam inhibitors such as ampicillin, sulfactam, or amoxicillin or cephalosporin are in general not effect as short-term therapy and are not recommended for empirical therapy due to ecological correlate damage, but may be used in selected cases. And the recommendation, if cystitis in pregnancy, short course of antimicrobial therapy can also be considered for treatment of cystitis in pregnancy, but not all antimicrobial are suitable during pregnancy. In general, penicillin, cephalosporin, fosfomycin, nitrofurantoin, not in case of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency and during the end of pregnancy. Trimethoprim not in the first trimester, and sulfonamide not in the first trimester can be considered. Recommendation in cystitis in men. Uncomplicated cystitis without involvement of the prostate is uncommon. Treatment with antimicrobial penetrate into the prostate tissue is needed in male with symptomatic of symptoms of UTI. Our treatment duration of at least 7 days is recommended, preferably with trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole. Recommendation, if renal insufficiency. If a patient with renal insufficiency, the choice of antimicrobial may be influenced by decrease in excretion. No adjustment of dose is necessary until glomerular filtration rate is less than 20 less than 20 ml per minute, except for antimicrobial with a nephrotoxic potential. Manoglycoside combination of glutadiuretic, furosemide and cephalosporin is a nephrotoxic. Nitrofurantoin and tetracycline are contraindication with the exception of doxycycline. Summary of evidence for antimicrobial therapy for uncomplicated cystitis. Clinical success for the treatment of uncomplicated cystitis is significantly more likely in women treated with antimicrobial than placebo. Aminopenicillin and fluoroquinolone are no longer suitable for antimicrobial therapy in uncomplicated cystitis in women because of negative ecological effect and worldwide high resistance rate. Summary of recommendation for antimicrobial therapy for uncomplicated cystitis. Prescribe fosfomycin, fosfomycin, not nitrofurantoin as a first-line treatment for uncomplicated cystitis in women who do not use aminopenicillin or fluoroquinolone to treat uncomplicated cystitis. So, recommendation follow-up in uncomplicated cystitis. Routine post-treatment urinalysis or uniculture is asymptomatic patient are not indicated. In women, those symptoms do not resolve by end of treatment, and in those whose symptoms resolve but recur within 2 weeks, uniculture and antimicrobial testing should be performed. For therapy in this situation, one should assume that the infective organism is not susceptible to the agent originally used. Retreatment with a 7 days regime using another agent should be considered. EAU guideline define the recurrent UTIs. Recurrent UTIs are recurrence of uncomplicated and complicated UTI with a frequency of at least 3 UTI per year or 2 UTIs in the last 6 months. Although recurrent UTIs include both lower urinary tract infections, cystitis, and upper tract infection, pyelonephritis, repeated pyelonephritis should be more considered of a complicated etiology. Age-related association of recurrent UTI in women in young and premenopausal women is the sexual intercourse, use of spermicide, new sexual partner, mother with a history of UTI. History of UTI during the childhood, blood group, antigen, security status, postmenopausal women and elder women. History of UTI before menopause, unique incontinence, atrophic vaginitis due to estrogen deficiency, cystosis, increased post-voiding urine volume, blood group, antigen, security status, unique catheter and function status. Recommendation for the diagnostic evaluation for recurrent diagnosis of recurrent UTI should be confirmed by the uniculture, and expensive routine work include cystoscopic image is not really recommended as the diagnosis yield is low. It should be performed without delay in atypical cases. For example, if renal calculi outflow obstruction, interstitial cystitis or urothelial cancer is suspected. Recommendation disease management or follow-up for the recurrent. Prevention of recurrent UTI include counseling regarding the awareness of risk factor, antimicrobial measure and antimicrobial prophylaxis. These interventions should be attempted in this order. First, behavioral modification. A number of behavioral and personal hygienic measures increase food intake, habitual and post-coital urination, wiping of front to back after defecation, wearing closive underwear has been suggested to decrease the risk of recurrent UTI. Hormone replacement in post-menopausal women, vaginal estrogen replacement, but not oral estrogen show a trend toward prevent recurrent UTI. Amino active prophylaxis (OM89) is sufficiently well documented and has been shown to We are more effective than placebo in several randomized trials with a good safety profile. Profiles with probiotic data from a recent meta-analysis show no benefit of lactobacillus product as prophylaxis for recurrent UTI. Prophylaxis with cranberry studies we have suggest that cranberry is useful in reducing the rate of low UTI in women, but the meta-analysis, including 24 study and comparison 4,473 participants, show that current cranberry product did not significantly reduce the occurrence of symptomatic UTI for women with recurrent UTI. Due to these results, no recommendation on the daily consumptions of cranberry product can be made. For the prophylaxis with D-aminos in a randomized placebo-controlled non-blended clinical trial, it has shown that a daily dose of 2 gram D-aminos was significantly superior to placebo and as effective as 50 milligram nitroglycerin in preventing recurrent UTI. This is indicative but not significant for recommendation. Therefore, D-aminos should at present only be used within the context of clinical investigation. Endovascular installation of hydrochloric acid and chondroitin sulfate have been used for glycosaminoglycan layer replacement in the treatment of interstitial cystitis. So, a summary of evidence for the diagnostic evaluation and treatment of recurrent UTI. Extensive routine workup include cystoscopic imaging has a low diagnostic yield for the diagnosis of recurrent UTI. Studies that have investigated behavior risk factor in the development of recurrent UTI have documented the lack of association with the recurrent UTI. Vaginal estrogen replacement has shown a trend toward preventing recurrent UTI in postmenopausal women. OM89 has been shown to be more effective than placebo for immunoprophylaxis in female patients with recurrent UTI in several randomized trials with a good safety profile. Both continuous low dose antimicrobial prophylaxis and postcoital antimicrobial prophylaxis have been shown to reduce the rate of recurrent UTI. A prospective part is showing that the intermittent self-start therapy is effective, safe, and economical in women with recurrent UTI. The recommendation diagnosis recurrent UTI by the unit culture. Do not perform an extensive routine workup. Advise patient on behavioral medication, which might reduce the risk of recurrent UTI. Use vaginal estrogen replacement in postmenopausal women to prevent recurrent UTI. Use active prophylaxis to reduce the recurrent UTI in all age group. Use continuous or postcoital antimicrobial prophylaxis to prevent recurrent UTI when antimicrobial intervention have failed. Consult patient regarding possible side effect for patient with a good compliance self-administration short-term antimicrobial therapy should be considered. Recommendation for uncomplicated pyelonephritis. Uncomplicated pyelonephritis is defined as a pyelonephritis limited to non-pregnant premenopausal women with no non-relevant urological abnormalities or comorbidities. For diagnosis, the clinical diagnosis of pyelonephritis is suggested by fever, chills, back pain, nausea, vomiting, or posturovertebral ankle tenderness with or without the typical symptoms of cystitis. So, the differential diagnosis of uncomplicated pyelonephritis, it is a vital differentiate as shown as possible between uncomplicated and complicated possibility of obstructive pyelonephritis, as the latter can rapidly lead to urosepsis. This differential diagnosis should be made by the appropriate imaging technique. Laboratory diagnosis, urine analysis include the assessment of white and red blood cells, and nitrate is recommended for routine diagnosis. In addition, the culture and antimicrobial tests should be performed in all cases of violent. The imaging diagnosis, the evolution of the upper tract with ultrasound should be performed to rule out the unit tract obstruction or renal stone. Disease additional investigations such as a contrast enhanced CT scan or excretory urography should be considered if the patient remains fever after 72 hours of treatment. For the diagnosis of a complicated factor in pregnant women, ultrasound or MRI should be used to avoid radiation risk to the fetus. This picture which is showing the pyelonephritis on right side and left side is normal kidney. Summary of evidence for diagnostic evaluation of uncomplicated pyelonephritis. Urine culture and antimicrobial testing should be performed in all cases of pyelonephritis in addition or to urine analysis. A prospective observation part study found that radiologic image can selectively be applied in adult with febrile UTI without loss of clinically relevant information by using a sample clinical predict rule. Additional image investigations such as an enhanced helical computerized tomography should be done if the patient remains febrile after 72 hours of treatment or in patient with suspect complication sepsis. Recommendation: the perform urinalysis using dipstick method, including the assessment of white and red blood cell and nitrate for protein diagnosis. Perform urine culture and antimicrobial susceptibility test in patient with pyelonephritis. Perform imaging of the urine tract to exclude urgent urological disorder. Disease management in outpatient treatment is the fluoroquinolone and cephalosporin are the only antimicrobial agent that can be recommended for medical treatment of uncomplicated pyelonephritis. Other agents are methotrexate or phosphomycin should be avoided because these agents not be achieved adequate renal tissue level. If fluoroquinolone hypersensitivity are non-resistant, other strategies including trimethoprim, sulfametazone, or an oral beta-lactam. Inpatient treatment: patient with uncomplicated pyelonephritis required hospitalization should be treated initially with an intravenous antimicrobial resistant proteasole and aminoglycoside with or without ampicillin or an extended spectrum cephalosporin or penicillin. Carbapenem in patient with early culture result indicate the presence of multi-drug resistant organism. The choose between these agents should be based on local resistant pattern and optimized on the basis of drug susceptibility result. In patient presenting the sign of urosepsis, empirical antimicrobial coverage for extended spectrum beta-lactam. Patient initially treated with parenteral therapy to improve clinically and can tolerate oral fluid may transfer to oral antimicrobial therapy. Summary of evidence for the treatment of uncomplicated pyelonephritis. The fluoroquinolone and the cephalosporin are the only microbial agent can be recommended for oral empirical treatment of uncomplicated pyelonephritis. Intravenous antimicrobial regime for uncomplicated pyelonephritis may include fluoroquinolone and aminoglycoside with or without ampicillin or an extended spectrum cephalosporin or penicillin. Carbapenem should only be considered in patient with early culture result indicate presence of multi-drug resistant organism. The appropriate antimicrobial should be chosen based on local resistant pattern and optimized on the basis of drug susceptibility result. And the recommendation are the treatment. Treat patient with uncomplicated pyelonephritis and not require hospitalization with a short course of fluoroquinolone. As first line treatment with patient with uncomplicated pyelonephritis requiring hospitalization with an intravenous antimicrobial regime. Initially, switch a patient initially treated with parenteral therapy who improved clinically can tolerate oral fluid to oral antimicrobial therapy. Do not use nitrofurantoin or fosfomycin uncomplicated pyelonephritis. The suggestion of the regime empirical oral antimicrobial therapy in uncomplicated pyelonephritis is ciprofloxacin, levofloxacin, trimethoprim, sulfametazole, and ceftriaxone. These are the antibiotics which is used in uncomplicated pyelonephritis. Suggested reason for empirical parental antimicrobial in uncomplicated pyelonephritis. As first line treatment is a ciprofloxacin, levofloxacin, ceftriaxone, and the ceftriaxone, and the second line is cefepime, piperacillin, and gentamicin, amikacin, and the alternatives is the imipenem and the meropenem. The complicated UTIs occur in an individual in whom factor related to the host, underlying diabetes or immunocompression or specific anatomical or function abnormalities related to the urinary obstruction, incomplete voiding due to detorious muscle dysfunction and lead to result in an infection that will be more difficult to eradicate than an uncomplicated infection. This common factor associated with the complicated UTIs, the obstruction at any site of urinary pregnancy, foreign bodies, incomplete voiding, diabetes mellitus, urethral reflex, recent history of instrumentation, immunosuppression, healthcare associated infection, UTI in male, and the recommendation for the diagnostic evaluation, the clinical presentation of a complicated UTI associated with clinical symptoms, dysuria, urgency frequency, flank pain, costovertebral angle tenderness, suprapubic pain, and fever. Some clinical situation, the symptoms may be atypical, for example, in neuropathic bladder disturbance or catheterized associated UTI. Clinicians must also recognize that symptoms, especially lower urinary tract symptoms, are not only caused by UTIs but also by other urological disorders, such as, for example, benign prostatic hyperplasia and autonomic dysfunction in patients with spinal lesion and neurogenic bladder. Medical conditions such as diabetic mellitus and renal failure, which can be related to urological abnormalities, are often also present in complicated UTIs. The uniculture, laboratory uniculture, is the recommended method to determine the presence or absence of clinically significant bacteriuria in patients suspected of having a complicated UTI. And the microbiologically spectrum and antimicrobial resistant, a broad range of microbial organisms cause complicated UTIs. The spectrum is much larger than in uncomplicated UTIs, and the bacteria are more likely to be resistant, especially in treatment-related complicated UTI than uncomplicated. E. coli, Proteus, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, and Enterococcus species are the most common species found in culture. Enterobacterial species 60 to 75% with E. coli as the most common pathogen, particularly if the UTI is a first infection. Otherwise, the bacterial spectrum may vary over time and from one hospital to other. Summary of evidence for the treatment of complicated UTI. The patient with the UTI with symptomatic symptoms requiring hospitalization should be initially treated with an intravenous antimicrobial regime chosen based on local resistant data and previous urine culture results from the patient if available, The region should be tolerated on the basis of a suspectability result. If the prevalence of fluoroquinolone resistance is less than 10% and the patient has contraindication for third generation cephalosporin or an aminoglycoside cephalosporin can be prescribed as empirical treatment in women with complicated pyelonephritis. In the event of a hypersensitivity or to penicillin, cephalosporin can still be prescribed unless the patient has had a symptom anaphylaxis in the past. In patient with a complicated UTI with symptomatic symptoms, empirical treatment should cover the beta-lactams if there is an increased typhoid beta-lactam infection based on prevalence in the community and prior antimicrobial exposure of the patient. Recommendation use the combination of amoxicillin plus an aminoglycoside and second generation cephalosporin plus an aminoglycoside. The third generation cephalosporin intravenously as empirical treatment of complicated UTI with systematic symptoms. Only use ciprofloxacin provided that the local resistance percentage are less than 10%. The entire treatment is given orally. Patient do not require hospitalization. Patient has an anaphylaxis for beta-lactam antimicrobial. Do not use ciprofloxacin and other fluoroquinolone for the empirical treatment for complicated UTI in patient with the urological department or then patient have used fluoroquinolone in last 6 months. Manage any urological abnormalities and underlying complicated factors. Guideline for catheter-associated UTIs. The catheter-associated UTIs refer to UTIs occurring in a person whose urinary tract is currently catheterized or has been catheterized within the past 48 hours. The following recommendations are based on the SWAB guideline for the Dutch Working Party on the antibiotic policy as well as the IDSA guidelines. Epidemiology, etiology, and the pathophysiology for the catheter-associated UTI are the leading cause of secondary healthcare associated with dysemia. Approximately 20% of hospital-acquired dysemia lies from the urinary tract, and the mortality associated with this condition is approximately 10%. The incidence of bacteriuria associated with catheterization is 3 to 8% per day. The duration of catheterization is most important risk factor for the development of catheter-associated UTI. Unique catheter host defense mechanism and provide easier access of uropathogen to the bladder. Unique catheter facilitate colonization with the uropathogen by providing a surface for the attachment of host cell binding receptor recognized by bacterial adherence and enhance the microbial adhesion. In addition, the uroepithelial mucosa is disturbed, exposing new binding site for bacterial adhesion, and residual urine in the bacteria bladder is increase the catheter bulb. The catheter-associated UTIs are often polymicrobial and caused by multi-drug resistant uropathogen. So the summary of evidence of and the diagnosis for the associate unique catheter association UTI. The patient with or suprapubic catheter become carriers of asymptomatic urea with antibiotic treatment showing no benefit. In the catheter patient, the presence or absence of cloudy urine alone should not be used to differentiate the catheter association asymptomatic urea for the catheter association UTI. Microbiologically, catheter associated UTI is defined by microbial growth is more than power 3. colony formation unit per ml of one or more bacterial species in a single catheter species specimen, or in a mid-stream voiding unit specimen for a patient whose catheter has been removed within the previous 48 hours. And the recommendation, do not carry out routine urine culture in asymptomatic catheterized patient. Do not use pyuria as sole indicator for catheter-associated UTI. Do not use the presence or absence of ordinance cloudy urine alone to differentiate catheter-associated asymptomatic bacteriuria, catheterized-associated UTI. And disease management. Urine specimen for culture should be obtained prior to initiate the antimicrobial therapy for resume catheter-associated UTI. The urine culture should be obtained for the freshly placed catheter prior to the initiate of antimicrobial therapy. Symptomatic associated UTI should be treated according to the recommendation for complicated UTI 7 days is the recommended duration of antimicrobial treatment for patients with catheter-associated UTI who have promoted resolution of symptoms, and 14 days of treatment is recommended for those with a delayed response regardless the catheter or not. 5 days regime of levofloxacin may be considered in patients with catheter-associated UTI who are not severely. 3 days antimicrobial regime may be considered for women aged less than 65 years who develop catheter-associated UTI without upper urinary symptoms after an inguinal catheter has been removed. The guideline for the urethritis is the inflammation of the urethra. Presence usually with a lower tract infection, and must be distinction from other infection of the lower tract. The following recommendations are based on a review of several European national guidelines and the CDEC guidelines on sexually transmitted disease. Epidemiology for the therapeutic and the clinical point of view, gonococcal urethritis must be differentiated from non-gonococcal urethritis. Infection is spread by sexual contact causative pathogen include Neisseria, gonorrhea, chlamydia, mycoplasma, trichomonas vaginalis. In the study, the chlamydia is 22.3%, and the mycoplasma is 12.5%, and the trichomonas vaginalis is 2.5%, and the ureaplasm in 24.0%, with multiple pathogen detected in 9.5%, and no etiology in 29.2%. Causative agent either remain extracellular on the epithelial layer or penetrate into the epithelium. Neisseria gonorrhea and chlamydia trachomatis and cause vaginal infection. Also, rising the urethritis, chlamydia, and the gonococci can spread further through the urogenital tract to cause epididymitis in men, and squamous and endometritis and salpingitis in women. Mecopleurine discharge, dysuria, urethral pruritus are symptoms of urethritis. And the summary of evidence are recommendation for the diagnostic, evolution, and the antimicrobial treatment of urethritis. Validity of the first wide urine sample are better than any other test available for the diagnosis of chlamydia and gonococcal infection. The ground chain of urethral discharge of urethral smear that show more than 5 leukocytes per hypocrit, and gonococci located intracellularly as gram-negative tetracocci indicates gonococcal urethritis. And the recommendation perform a ground chain of urethral discharge or a urethral smear to diagnose gonococcal urethritis. Perform nucleic acid amplification test on a first forward urine sample or urethral smear to diagnose chlamydia and gonococcal infection. Use a pathogen treatment based on local resistant data. The suggestion is written for the antimicrobial therapy for the urethritis. For the gonococcal infection is the ceftriaxone plus azithromycin, a non-gonococcal infection is doxycycline, and for the chlamydia is the azithromycin, mycoplasma for azithromycin, and uroplasm for doxycycline, and the Cumulus vaginalis is a metronidazole. Follow-up of the patient of the urethritis. Patient should be followed up for control of medication or if symptoms persist or if after completion of therapy. Patient should be instructed to obtain for session reports for 7 days after therapy is initiated, provided their symptoms have resolved and their sexual partner have been adequately treated. Reported and source tracking should be done in accordance with national guidelines and incorporate with specialists in venereology whether required. Person who have been diagnosed with a new sexually transmitted disease should receive testing for another sexually transmitted disease including SRS and HIV. The guideline for bacterial prostatitis. Bacterial prostatitis is a clinical condition caused by bacterial pathogen. It is recommended that urologists use classification suggested by the National Institute of Diabetes Digestive and Kidney Disease of the National Institute of Health in which bacterial prostatitis which confirmed or suspected infection is a distinction from chronic pelvic pain syndromes. This is a classification. Type 1, the acute bacterial prostatitis, chronic bacterial prostatitis, chronic non-bacterial prostatitis, inflammatory white cell eczema, non-inflammatory and asymptomatic inflammatory prostatitis. The epidemiology of the prostatitis is a common diagnosis, but less than 10% of cases have proven bacterial infection. Enterobacteria, especially E. coli, are the predominant pathogen in acute bacterial prostatitis. In chronic bacterial prostatitis, the spectrum of species is wider and may include atypical microorganisms. In patients with immune deficiency or HIV infection, prostatitis may be caused by the tuberculosis, candida species, and other pathogens such as the blastomyces and the histoplasma species. And the diagnostic variation on history and symptoms. Acute bacterial prostatitis usually present abundantly with widening symptoms and distressing, particularly localized pain. It is often associated with malaise and fever. Transrectal prostate biopsy increase the risk of acute bacterial prostatitis despite antibiotic prophylaxis and antiseptic prevention procedure. Chronic bacterial prostatitis is defined by symptoms that persist for at least 3 months. The predominant symptoms are pain at various locations include the cranium, scrotum, penis, and inner part of the leg as well as urinary tract. Clinical finding in acute bacterial prostatitis, the prostate may be swollen and tenderness on DI. Prostate massage should be avoided as it can induce bacteremia and sepsis. Urine dipstick testing for nitrate and mucositis has a positive predictive value of 95% and a negative predictive value of 70%. Blood pressure and complete blood count are useful in acute bacterial prostatitis. Imaging study can detect a suspect prostatic abscess. Urine culture and express prostatic excretion. The most important investigation in the evaluation of patient with acute bacterial prostatitis is a midstream urine culture. In chronic bacterial prostatitis, the bacteriological culture and microscopy of the segment urine and express prostate secretion are still important investigation to clinical prostatitis. Prostate biopsy cannot be recommended as a routine workup and are not advisable in patients with untreated bacterial prostatitis due to the increased risk of sepsis. Other tests are transrectal ultrasound may reveal endoprostatic abscess, calcification in prostate, and dilation of seminal vesicle. Prostate specific antigen. Prostate specific antigen is increased in about 60% and 20% in men. With acute bacterial prostatitis and chronic bacterial prostatitis, the PSA level decrease after antibiotic therapy is approximately 40% and correlate with the clinical and the microbiological improvement. Measurement of free and total PSA adds no practical diagnostic information in prostatitis. And this is a summary for the evidence and recommendation for the diagnosis of the bacterial prostatitis. Unit X for nitrate glycosides has a positive predictive value of 95% and a negative predictive value of 70% in patient with acute bacterial prostatitis. And the 4-glass mix and STEMI test is the optimum test for diagnosis of chronic bacterial prostatitis. The 2-glass test has been shown the upper similar diagnosis sensitivity in a comparison study. First white urine is the preferred specimen for the diagnosis urologist, chlamydia trachomatis infection in men. The transrectal ultrasound is unreliable and cannot be used as a diagnostic tool for prostatitis. Semen culture sensitive is reported to be approximately 50%, therefore it is not really part of the diagnosis of chronic bacterial prostatitis. Prostatic specimen antigen level may be elevated during active prostatitis. Therefore, PSA testing should be avoided as it offers no practical diagnostic information for prostatitis. And recommendation do not perform prostate massage in acute bacterial prostatitis. Take medicine during dipstick to check nitrate leukocyte in patient with clinical suspension of acute bacterial prostatitis. Take medicine urine culture in patient with acute bacterial prostatitis symptoms to guide, diagnose, and antibiotic treatment. Take a blood culture and a total blood count in patient presenting with acute bacterial prostatitis. Perform accurate microbial evaluation for atypical pathogen such as chlamydia, mycoplasma with chronic bacterial prostatitis. Perform 2 to 4 glass tests in patient with chronic bacterial prostatitis. Perform transrectal ultrasound in selected case to rule out the presence of prostatitis abscess. Do not perform microbiological analysis for ejaculation alone to diagnose the chronic bacterial prostatitis. This is showing the technique of 2 to 4 glass test, in which first sample take 10 ml, which is showing sample showing the urethritis, and midstream next midstream sample showing the infection of bladder cystitis. And after massaging the prostate, the sample is taken and which is culture out showing which is showing the infection of prostate. And this fourth one is after massage. This measurement in bacterial prostatitis is antimicrobial are life-saving. In acute bacterial prostatitis are recommended. In chronic bacterial prostatitis, culture guided antibiotic treatment. Empirical therapy should be considered in all patients with acute bacterial prostatitis. In Acute bacterial prostatitis, parental administration of high dose of bactericidal antimicrobial such as cross-spectrum penicillin, third generation cephalosporin or fluoroquinolones is recommended. Fluoroquinolone, despite the high resistance rate of uropathogen, are recommended as first line agent. Uh, Intraprostatic injection of antimicrobial. This treatment has not been lived is in controlled trials and should not be considered. Combined treatment, combination of the fluoroquinolones with vardenafils either improve microbiological eradication rates and pain or voiding symptoms in comparison with the fluoroquinolone treatment alone. Drainage and surgery. Approximately 10% of men with acute bacterial prostatitis will experience urinary retention, which can be managed by urethral or suprapubic catheterization. Recent evidence suggests that suprapubic catheterization can reduce the risk of development of chronic bacterial prostatitis. In case of prostatic abscess, both drainage and treatment and the abscess size may be matter. In one study, a conservative treatment was successful if the abscess cavities were less than 1 centimeter in diameter, while large abscesses were betterly treated by simultaneous aspiration and continuous drainage. And this is the suggested reason for the antimicrobial therapy for chronic bacterial prostatitis, fluoroquinolones, doxycycline, erythromycin, and metronidazole with their daily dose and duration. The follow-up of the prostatitis in asymptomatic post-treatment patient routine analysis and or urine culture is not mandatory as there are no valid tests of cure for bacterial prostatitis except for causation of symptoms. In patients with persist symptoms and repeated positive microbial blood for sexually transmitted infection, pathogen microbiological screening of the patient pattern is recommended. Antibiotic treatment may be repeated with a more prolonged course, higher dosage and or different compound. And this is the suggestion regime for antimicrobial therapy for milking green.
Dr. Hamza? जी सर.
Ji Hamza, please. How much is left?
So what?
Right. Okay.
And suggestion reason for antimicrobial prophylaxis prior to the urological procedure. The procedure of the urodynamics, cystoscopy, extracorporeal shock waves, ureteroscopy, percutaneous nephrolepharotomy, transmural resection of the prostate, transmural resection of the bladder, transrectal prostate biopsy. These are the procedure in which some procedures have indicated to prophylaxis antimicrobial therapy. In ureteroscopy, trimethoprim and the trimethoprim with the sulfametazole and the cephalosporin and aminopenicillin are recommended. And in transrectal post biopsy, the fluoroquinolone, trimethoprim and trimethoprim with sulfametazole and target alternative are suggested.
Thank you very much. So, a very detailed and a very good explanation of the topic. Thank you, Dr. Hamza. You see, in whichever field you want to practice in urology or in in medicine, for instance, surgery and medicine alike, uh, one has to know the guidelines and the recommendations rather for antibiotic therapy. Whether I want to operate on a patient of stone or on a patient of prostate, or whether I don't want to operate but rather give something for the relief of symptoms, I must know, is there symptoms related to UTI, or is there something called asymptomatic UTI? Yes, Rafi, you want to say something?
सर OM89 का उन्होंने जिक्र किया था. What is that oral vaccine OM89?
89? I don't get it. Hamza,
हमजा आपने OM89 वैक्सीन का जिक्र किया था. काइंडली एक्सप्लेन करते हैं क्या? वो आपके शुरू के स्लाइड में था जो फर्स्ट गाइडलाइंस आपने बताई.
yes, this one. No, forward. 3 forward.
Yeah, this one.
Yes. So this is immunoactive prophylaxis. OM89 is sufficiently well documented.
For recurrent UTI.
So what is it? OM89 is, what is it? Is it something, a vaccine?
Sir, I'm not more study on it.
Right. So I don't know, maybe I just look into it and then come back to you. But it looks like a vaccine because it. Yes, you know something about it, Rafi?
मैंने सर अभी गूगल सर्च किया था इस पे, तो they are saying it's an oral vaccine and not much was written about it, what it is, what actually is it. So it's just an oral vaccine against E. coli, I guess.
Right.
Not detail was given into it.
Yes. So we have got a lot of articles these days about vaccines and vaccination, and this is a subject which is not something which is hasn't come up because of COVID-19 infection that we have, but it is something which is already on the arena of medicine for the past few years. So we have now vaccines for perhaps cases like oncology. We have got vaccines for instance, in prostatic cancer. So this concept of vaccine has to be understood, because what the main concept is to stimulate and make use of certain cells which are immunocompetent cells, particularly B and T lymphocytes. And these B and T lymphocytes, they have got their individual property of making colonies which are specific for a certain kind of disease aspect. Maybe it's related to cancer, or it is related to introduction of a bacteria or a viral particle. So if you are interested in this subject, then we can do some research and then come up with a presentation of what's the concept of vaccine these days. Is it only for communicable diseases, or is it something for certain non-communicable diseases but prevalent conditions, or conditions which are in more magnitude like cancer? So we'll talk about it, because I have seen certain articles, but they are more concerned with the basics of genetics and immunology. But I can ask somebody who is actually a specialist in immunology, and then they can guide us and tell us something about it. Right. So this was something which is very interesting, the topic of antibiotic therapy. Um, Again, every hospital, every region, country or city specific, there has to be some guidelines. There has to be some recommendations rather than guidelines, which might differ from area to area or hospital to hospital, depending upon the antibiogram and depending upon the infection prevalences. So it is a subject which is always changing. It is nothing which is static. So whatever is the practice of prescription these days, it might change in near future. But one thing which I want to just stress at this point, just to emphasize at this point is, if you don't have a diagnosis and if you are short of having something for your patient, don't prescribe antibiotic. If you make it a rule of practice, a rule of thumb for urology especially, then you will do more good to the patient rather than something which is of some worse outcome. Why I'm telling you is this, just because the reason that urinary tract infection now has got very limited spectrum of drugs available. You have got very limited choices from which you can choose one drug. Many of the drugs are now resistant. Many of the infections and bacteria have become rather resistant to these drugs, and they are not effective. And this is not only applicable to our population here in Pakistan, but it is something which is also there all over the world. All over the world, urinary tract infections are very hard to treat these days, particularly. So whenever you have got evidence, strong evidence, do treat them. But if you don't have the evidence and the patient is not symptomatic, for many of the cases, you should not treat them except something called pregnancy, right? So I think now we have exhausted, listened to lectures, very good lectures, both of them, for the past 3 hours. Just to say thank you very much and goodbye. Khuda Hafiz.